Diving into something, well, pretty fundamental to the human experience, wouldn't you say? Sex and love.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't thought about this stuff?
Exactly, but we're not just going to skim the surface here. We're going deep, trying to figure out what actually leads to, genuine intimacy, real connection that lasts, and of course, those really satisfying sexual experiences.
That's right. We're going to be looking past the myths and getting into how it all actually works.
I'm thinking of it kind of like, getting a peek behind the curtain. Like, how do these really important parts of our lives actually function?
And how can we use that knowledge to have better experiences in relationships, right?
Exactly. I mean, you guys have sent in a ton of great stuff, questions, resources, stories, all kinds of stuff. And our goal today is to dig into all of it and see if we can pull out some real gold, the kind of stuff that can actually make a difference in how we approach these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're going to cover a lot of ground. We'll look at some of those common beliefs we have about sex and love, see if they hold up. We'll dig into the science of attraction and connection, those feelings of lust and love.
And we'll tackle some of those trickier parts of the modern dating world. Oh, and how intimacy changes as we get older, all that good stuff.
Because let's be honest, this stuff is relevant at any age.
So true. Okay, let's just jump right in. One of the biggies that comes up a lot is this idea that great sex is something you're either born with or not. Like, some people are just naturally good at it.
Like it's a talent, right?
Yeah, like some people are born knowing how to play the piano or something.
But that's not really how it works, is it?
Nope. I mean, think about it. If you believe that, then you're basically saying there's no hope for the rest of us.
Right, you're either a natural or you're doomed.
Exactly. And that's just not true at all. What we've seen from the research and from people's actual experiences is that truly satisfying intimacy, it's a skill.
A skill, yeah.
And like any skill, you can get better at it with practice, curiosity, and open communication.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the sources we looked at, they all kind of point back to the idea that the most fulfilling experiences sexually happen when both people are open to learning and exploring what feels good. For both of them.
It's about that shared journey, right?
Yeah, totally. It's not about some magical ability you're born with or anything like that.
So if it's a skill, where do we even start?
Well, honestly, one of the simplest but most important things is just asking questions.
About what your partner likes?
Yeah, like what feels good, what they want you to do.
Okay. Yeah, that can feel awkward.
It can be a little awkward, but I think that awkwardness is way better than the alternative. I mean, how are you supposed to know what someone likes if you don't ask?
Right. Makes sense.
And another thing we have to remember, good sex is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, if you're both enjoying yourselves, you're probably doing something right.
It shouldn't feel like a chore or something.
No way. Oh, one of the studies we found actually had a pretty interesting suggestion. They call it the, what was it? The 3-minute rule.
3-minute rule.
Yeah, it's basically just spending an extra 3 minutes on foreplay.
Oh, okay. I can see how that would help.
Yeah, apparently that little bit of extra time can make a really big difference in the overall experience.
It makes sense. I mean, so often we just rush into things.
It's all about slowing down and being present.
Yeah, that sounds nice, actually. Just taking your time.
Exactly. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about this fascinating interplay between love and lust. This is where the science gets really cool.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
So we have these hormones in our brains, like oxytocin. It's often called the love hormone.
Right, I've heard of that.
It's associated with feelings of bonding, attachment, that kind of thing. And then you have dopamine.
Dopamine, yeah.
Yeah.
The pleasure chemical, right?
Yeah, it's more about desire, reward, that feeling of wanting something. And they both play huge roles in how we experience attraction in relationships.
But they work in different ways.
Yeah, they do. And it's their interaction that creates those really intense feelings we experience when we're falling for someone. You know, that kind of crazy, can't get enough of you feeling.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that comes down to this kind of chemical dance happening in our brains.
It's like a cocktail of brain chemicals.
It is, literally. And the interesting thing is that we can actually influence these systems. You know, we can do things to kind of nurture those feelings of love and lust.
Oh, really? Like how?
Well, for people who are just starting to date someone new, the research suggests that focusing on like lust dates can be really helpful.
Lust dates. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, it's basically just dates that are all about having fun together. Pure enjoyment, no pressure.
So like just going out and doing something exciting together.
Exactly. Focusing on building that initial attraction and enjoying each other's company.
That makes sense, especially in the early stages.
Yeah. And then for couples who've been together longer, maybe the initial crazy passion has calmed down a bit.
As it tends to do.
Well, one suggestion that came up a lot was to try something new together each month.
Oh, to spice things up a bit.
Yeah. It could be exploring a fantasy, a different type of intimacy, even just having sex in a new place.
Just something to break the routine.
Exactly. And that actually helps to keep that dopamine system firing, which keeps things feeling exciting.
Interesting. So what about people who are single? Any advice for them?
Well, the sources we looked at really emphasize the importance of self-confidence.
Self-confidence.
Yeah, and not just because it makes you more attractive to others, but because it lays the foundation for any healthy future relationship.
It's like that saying, you have to love yourself before you can love someone else.
Yeah, there's definitely truth to that. When you feel good about yourself, it just radiates outwards.
I totally agree. It changes your whole energy.
It really does. Okay, so moving on to something that's been getting a lot more attention lately, the orgasm gap.
Oh, yeah. This is important.
It is, and the data is pretty clear. There's a big difference in how often straight men and women experience orgasm during sex.
And why do you think that is?
Well, a lot of it comes down to differences in how we're taught about sex. What we learn in school, from our friends, even from the media.
We get all these messages about how things are supposed to be.
Yeah, and those messages aren't always accurate or helpful. For example, a lot of women just aren't taught enough about their own bodies, especially the clitoris.
Yeah, and that's kind of a big deal, isn't it?
It's a huge deal. I mean, for most women, the clitoris is the key to having an orgasm.
So why aren't we talking about it more?
Good question. I think it's changing, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay, so what can we do about this gap? Like, how can we close it?
Well, communication is key. For women, learning to advocate for their own pleasure is so important.
But that can be hard.
I know it can, but there are ways to do it that are more effective. Like instead of saying, you're not doing this or I don't like that, try phrasing things in a positive way. Like, I love it when you...
Oh, I see. So focusing on what you do want, not just what you don't want.
Exactly.
And what about men? What's their role in all of this?
Well, I think it goes back to education. Men need to understand female anatomy, especially the clitoris and how sensitive it is.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like we're back in high school biology class.
Well, a refresher never hurts. And another thing that came up a lot in the research was the use of sex toys.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they can be really great tools for both men and women to explore different sensations and, enhance pleasure.
I think there's still a bit of a stigma around using them, though.
Yeah, but honestly, that stigma is starting to fade. And there's absolutely no reason to be ashamed or embarrassed about using them. If it brings you pleasure, then go for it.
It's funny how we can be so open about so many things in our lives, but sex is still kind of taboo for a lot of people.
It is, but that's starting to change.
Yeah, and I think conversations like this one help.
Yeah.
So let's talk about dating in the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
Because things have gotten pretty complicated, haven't they?
They really have. Dating apps, ghosting, all these undefined relationships. It's a whole new landscape out there.
It can feel like a minefield sometimes.
It can. So what do we do? Well, one thing that came up a lot was the two-text rule.
What's that?
It's pretty simple. If you send someone two texts and they don't respond, move on.
Oh, okay. Don't waste your time on someone who's not interested.
Exactly. And then there's the no spark test.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one.
This one's all about physical chemistry.
Yeah.
The idea is that if you haven't kissed by the third date, there's probably not enough of a spark there.
So it's like a deadline for kissing.
Well, not really a deadline, but more of a guideline.
Makes sense. Sometimes you just got to know if there's that physical connection.
Exactly. And finally, one thing that's really important when you're navigating this whole dating world is knowing your green flags.
Green flags, like the good signs.
Yeah. These are the non-negotiable qualities you're looking for in a partner. And I'm not talking about superficial stuff like looks or money. I'm talking about values, communication styles, how someone makes you feel, the stuff that really matters in the long run.
So being clear about what you want and need in a relationship.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to a topic that's often overlooked. Sex and intimacy after 40.
Oh, this is something I'm definitely interested in.
I think a lot of people are. And one of the most interesting things we found is that for women, sexual satisfaction can actually increase with age.
Really? Why is that?
Well, there are a few reasons. One is that as we get older, we tend to care less about what other people think.
We're more comfortable in our own skin.
Exactly. And that confidence can be really sexy. Plus, our kids might be older and more independent, so we have more time and energy for ourselves.
Freedom.
Yeah, freedom is definitely a factor. But there are also some practical things to keep in mind. Like, hormonal changes can sometimes lead to vaginal dryness.
Right. That's something a lot of women experience.
It is. But the good news is that it's easily addressed with lubricants.
Lubricants are amazing.
They are. Another interesting concept that came up was slow sex.
Slow sex, what is that?
It's basically about shifting the focus away from just having an orgasm and more towards enjoying the entire experience.
So taking your time, savoring every sensation.
Yeah. And a lot of people find that it can lead to a much deeper and more intimate connection.
It's more about the journey than the destination.
Exactly. And, sometimes we forget to keep things playful and exciting, even in long-term relationships. So one little tip is to just send a flirty text every now and then.
Oh, I like that. Keep the spark alive.
Exactly. Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. Given everything we've talked about today, what do you think is more important? That deep, passionate love or the evolution of sexual satisfaction throughout our lives?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is a tough question. And how do you think our views on these things are changing as a society? I mean, are we becoming more open and accepting?
Those are definitely some things to ponder.
They are. And here's our call to action for you today. Take some time to really reflect on the things we've discussed. Maybe one or two things stood out to you. And if they did, think about how you can apply those ideas to your own life. Even small changes can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It's all about taking those little steps towards better understanding ourselves and our relationships.
That's what this is all about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.